Okay, we're going to have the world-famous Paul Preston up to give his litany of what's going on. And at the end of that, we're going to have a special surprise. Mr. Preston.
Thank you. Dorothy. Where's Dorothy?
Oh, are you?
Oh, Dorothy. You don't know who Dorothy is? I think she's the resident. No, she did. She's right back there. Dorothy. Dorothy, can you stand up for a second? We all love Dorothy. Bill, not so much with Dorothy, yes. I was perusing my Facebook account today, and I noticed that a lot of people were responding to the fact that this is, of course, December 7th, the day that will live in infamy, as opposed to yesterday, December 6th, which probably won't be remembered in infamy from the president. But Dorothy has an interesting perspective. See, I'm calling her out on it. That's what this Facebook social stuff does. Okay, so Dorothy, how old were you on December 7th, 1941? 13 years old. Just thought I'd bring that into the historical perspective because it's a link to the past, obviously. How many of you remember or were alive then and remember December 7th, 1941? A day that will live in infamy. No question about it. I didn't mean to embarrass you, Dorothy. Did I? No, I didn't. I didn't think so. Okay, so this is the way, see, I love this because the way the internet works is that what you put out there is for the world to see. Yeah, so there's about 7 billion people on the planet right now. I think maybe they have access to that. Anyway, what is all this candy and sparkling white, right? That's not going to work for me. And there's a set of keys here. Ooh, there's a card. Okay, as I usually do at this time, I'll take a few quick questions and I get into my relatively short list. Any questions? Questions?
You guys have our Tea Party?
Hillary Clinton emails? Well, it's an interesting, okay, you all know about the Hillary Clinton emails, and I'm not discounting San Bernardino and all that stuff, because I'll give you the what for on that. The Hillary Clinton emails, she's having bigger problems as the days go by. Her biggest problem right now is an FBI director who apparently has turned against Obama. And the White House is not happy about the FBI director turning against Obama. And that's because the FBI director and the FBI were forced to admit that San Bernardino was a terrorist attack.
That's right.
They were forced to admit it. The overwhelming evidence, and then the links to international terrorism, forced them to admit it, much to the chagrin to the president, because well, I'll get into it now. You see, the attack was not planned by the president. No, I know it wasn't. And therein lies the big story. I want to take you back to a couple weeks ago. You see, this whole thing that happened in San Bernardino was retaliation to the president. Well, let's see. Let's begin with the bringing down of the Russian airliner in Sinai that killed over 200 people, caused by ISIS. Supposedly blown out of the sky by a bomb. That's not what we're hearing. It was shot down. Putin knows that. And then, the president's good buddy, Erdogan, in Turkey. You see, Erdogan in Turkey is supposed to be the caliph of the caliphate that's going on right now. The first person the president calls almost on a daily basis when he gets up is Erdogan in Turkey. And who is blatantly, openly supporting ISIS by buying their oil and everything else, brought to you by Putin, is Turkey. By the way, it goes deeper. Who is funding ISIS and Al-Qaeda and so on through a deal by Turkey here in the United States? Do you know who's funding those guys? No, oh no. No. We are. You see, Turkey has been negotiating with all the sovereign Indian nations, American Indian nations, and making deals. One is the Platte, I think it's the Platte River, Idaho, or Montana group. The Kerr Dam incident, that has brought all that to light. And what happens is that the Indians have gone into an agreement with Turkey, so that Turkey has mineral rights to the high-grade, weapons-grade uranium on the reservations. Thank you, President Obama. The president pays the Indians, and not the Indians, the board of directors for these tribes. In turn, if you want to do an audit of that money, you'll find zero. That money goes right to the Barack H. Obama Foundation, run by the president's brother, Malik Obama, which funds Al-Qaeda and ISIS. These are court documents we're talking about here. No. Oh no, why would that happen? Why would that happen? So let me put it to you this way, because this is retaliation. Plain and simple. You also have people like Saudi Arabia that are really unhappy with this whole ISIS business. And again, the world all knows what apparently a lot of us now in America are finding out is that the United States created ISIS. I've been saying this now years. I just find it really funny. I was listening tonight to one of our local, nationally syndicated people who has no courage at all, and has had no courage at all for the last 2.5, 3 years, who's known this information. And suddenly he's talking about it like he's talked about it, and he said, I've been talking about this for years. Okay. So anyway, we created ISIS. Putin has openly discussed the fact we've created ISIS for months. We are the enemy. And what is the value of creating ISIS? Is to create refugees who become what? Terrorists. But what do refugees do? They displace themselves. They go where? They go to Europe. And of course they've been coming here now. The number we're hearing, I checked yesterday, the number we're hearing from my people is almost 300,000 Syrians here already. This is a nightly experience. Most recent one was reported in Pennsylvania. A constable in Pennsylvania actually reported UPS planes flying in Syrians. It's been happening. And they're mostly men. You see how this plan's working. So the Saudi Arabians are upset. Because why? We're supporting Iran. Now remember, what does Iran mean? It means Aryan land, doesn't it? So we're getting into some pretty heavy stuff here. So they're mad. And do you think Mossad's happy with Obama? And there's another group that's really unhappy with Obama. And I can't tell you who they are. This was retaliation, plain and simple, against Obama, and Americans died as a result. It was an attack on America, because these people are not playing any longer. Our president is a treasonous traitor. End of subject. He's working for the terrorists and with the terrorists. We have to have that blood. Any politicians in here? Do we have any? One maybe? Or did they all leave already?
He left.
This is what's happening. It was retaliation, plain and simple. Now, if you note, and this is how we know this. Well, we know it for a number of different reasons. But this is, I mean, anybody could pick this up, and a lot of people were picking it up. How long did it take this administration to come up with a narrative for the events that happened?
Too damn long.
Every time there's been a shooting, mass disaster, whatever, right? It's like, but listen, it's like the bodies haven't cooled, and the president goes right out and says what it's about, right? This time it didn't work for him. And the reason is, he didn't know who attacked. The government didn't know what was happening. This was no drill. This wasn't a false flag event.
Are you saying he's planning these things?
I'm saying the president had no clue this was going to happen to him. But I am saying the other ones were very well planned by him. All of them. That's what's been going on. And this one was an operation completely different by different actors. Little clue. She's from Pakistan. That's Russian territory. Trained for a long time in madrasas there. They were both radicalized and radicalized for years. And you've heard the early reports coming from the administration because they're looking for outs. You heard the FBI director. Took him almost 3 hours to come up with the fact that there was some guy who left the whole thing. It was workplace violence, and there you have it. Isn't that what you heard? That's not what the radios were saying. I listened to almost all the whole thing about on the scanner with the police and with the sheriff. That's not what they were saying. They knew exactly what it was. A terrorist attack from the get-go, for other reasons. It was impossible. I mean, these guys came in, and they killed 14 people, wounded 20 some others, in just a little over a minute. Left pipe bombs all around the place, and exited and were gone within 2 minutes. Now, is that just your normal terrorist operation? Oh, by the way, if they were so upset, they rushed home and jumped right into their Kevlar body armor, didn't they? Isn't that amazing? By the way, there are 3. The third one is still missing. No one's saying anything about him, and it's a him. There's one more out there. So you see, it's a whole different operation from the get-go. The administration had no idea what was happening. They were scurrying around like crazy trying to figure out, what is this all about? Well, you fools, you go out and kill a bunch of Russians with your terrorist organization that you formed, and you think there's not going to be any retaliation coming back to America. You see how twisted this is? That's what happened. Contrary to popular opinion. And there's a lot of different, the administration's trying to spin things. It's not working. Your FBI director, who by the way has a 10-year term, he's going to be around when Obama's gone. He has stepped up. Because the other part of this, the excessive amount of evidence to show it's a terrorist attack. You have to get over that whole thing where Obama has always said, it's not a terrorist attack. When he downplays terrorism like this, it means he's on the other side. He's an apologist for these guys. We have to wake up to that. We have to have that conversation. Didn't happen this time. Didn't know what to say. And then Comey had to come out and say it was a terrorist attack. And then all of a sudden now, we're getting into financing these people. $28,000 just thrown right into his bank account a week before. Spent $10,000. This is coming from the administration. Spent $10,000 on guns. No, this is what they were saying today, 10,000 out of 28,000. Well, last time I checked, there's only 6 guns involved. I mean, so they're exaggerating, because you can buy these guns for $1,000 a piece. So maybe $2,000 or $3,000 for guns, and the rest for explosives. And of course, they had a bomb factory in the garage, right? And the bombs were sophisticated. So a several-year period in which these people were being, especially him, were being radicalized and trained. They went out 2 days beforehand, took target practice, did the whole 9 yards as a terrorist would do. That is what we're dealing with. That's the perspective that everybody doesn't want to talk about. We were literally attacked because of this president's policies, his own terrorist policies. So now we're in it. We're in it, and we're serious. I have been told there will be a big attack by the end of this month. Bigger. This is nothing. This was nothing. What they really have planned is what I talked about a year ago in July. Going into soft targets with people with body or with explosives, blowing themselves up first, and then coming in with killing crews with machine guns and killing and mutilating bodies, which is what they did in Paris. That's the grand plan for the United States. It will happen in small communities. I was told less than 10,000 people. Soft targets, high schools, junior high schools, preschools, daycares, raping squads for daycares. That's the way these people play. And that's their plan. How many of you have ever gone through active shooter training or participated? Anybody? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, it's a pretty valuable tool, actually. You just have to know what you're doing all the time. And you have to, somebody has to have some guns. This whole notion about disarming Americans. I got my letter the other day from the sheriff who said, I can no longer go on a school campus with my concealed carry. I thought to myself, great. I'm the superintendent and the principal who took down the signs in front of my schools that said, gun-free zone. I allowed teachers to carry guns. Didn't bother me. And there has not been not one incident in California history in which a teacher or somebody with a legal CCW has committed a crime or caused a death. Not one in California history. So you stack up those things and you say to yourself, okay, what are they really doing? They're disarming us for one reason.
To make it easier for the criminal.
You got it. So only the criminals will have weapons. But these people are not playing. Yes, ma'am. You like the petulant student, but that's okay.
We were told that on Saturday night at 9:30, immigration bus dropped people off at Plymouth Lake. Has anyone else heard this? Syrian people.
What time?
9:30.
At night.
On Saturday night.
Right.
Yes.
Yes,
Has anyone
ma'am.
heard this?
Plymouth Lake is on a list that I saw.
Yeah, I saw
Yes.
that too.
And there were supposed to only been 7. We were told that it was around 26 to 28.
That were just loaded off. Okay.
We don't have, I've heard this. I called relatives who live at Plymouth Lake. It's a tiny community out there all by itself. It's the softest target you could ever imagine.
Well, it's also wide open because you have a lot of empty homes.
Exactly.
And that's what you have here in the whole Sacramento area. That's why Sacramento is one of the areas in which they're dropping off these refugees.
9:30 at night on Saturday
Right.
night.
Right. That's why they do it. That's what I was saying. And the probability is they probably were flown in on a UPS plane. By the way, it brings me up to this other thing. There's something going on Facebook and Twitter about UPS uniforms being purchased on the internet, and don't, watch out for UPS people that are delivery people. That's false. I called everybody today. That's false. So UPS, you're off the hook. Just to sort of get you going out there. Somebody else had a question. Yes, sir.
You're saying there's 300,000 refugees that are coming to the country?
At least at this point, Syrians and other types of the Middle East.
Obama,
Mostly men.
Yeah, Obama was saying women and children. What is the possibilities or actually ISIS soldiers?
Like 100%.
You think that?
I'll tell you what, 110%. 110%, I guarantee it.
So we're also hearing about all the billions of rounds that Obama has purchased. Does it have anything to do with the two things together?
You know what? I love it when a person connects dots. Yeah. Yeah.
Hollow point too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, they mean business. I mean, this is what I have been literally, spending sleepless nights, 2 hours of sleep at night, trying to get this message across, and finally people are getting it. And I gotta tell you, I talk about this, and I think it's on the radio tonight in the third hour. I talk about this. I mean, I was really, Saturday morning I got up to do kind of my routine. It's 1:30 in the morning, went to bed at 12. What's wrong with me? And it just hit me. I mean, it just hit me. And I was just really taken emotionally by the fact that we in the alternative media, Tea Parties, you guys, all of us, really have been trying to get the word out to people. And finally, because of San Bernardino, the general public is waking up. And the reaction, of course, I always judge it by this. I see this as just wonderful positive news, is that gun sales skyrocket. The biggest one-day sale of guns happened on Black Friday. That was before San Bernardino. And now, Danielle, do you have any guns left in the shop?
Not very many. Honestly.
Yeah, see, we Americans know how to react. And another thing, too, I gotta say this. My understanding that the reason, I don't know if you guys caught this or not, and I know, Tom, this is a big one for you because it was a big one for me, was the militarization of our police. And we saw the Ferguson effect, and those poor guys out there trying to protest it. They got one guy standing there with a banner, and you got 30 guys with ARs pointing at him, a little oppressive looking. Well, of course, the president decided to pull back on this recently. I don't know if you caught this or not. So he's no longer going to give out military-grade weapons to police departments, such as, grenade launchers, tracked vehicles, I don't know, anything like that. Pretty effective, grenade launcher at the Tea Party, there you go. God forbid the guy who fires a grenade. And it just hit me when I was listening to everything in San Bernardino. And I was watching these guys from San Bernardino do their work. And by the way, I have a master's degree from California State University at San Bernardino. I know that area well. I worked with the Sacramento County Sheriff for about 7 years. And they don't play. The San Bernardino County Sheriff does not play. When they found what was going on with these people, I got to tell you, if you can get a copy, I'll make some available on the website of the police scanner. Incredible coordination to track these two monsters down and kill them. And there was no doubt they were going to get killed. You listen to these guys talk, their professionalism, and the way everything went down, they were going to take them out, and they did. There was no doubt about it. Now, everybody might say that this was police, it was the armed military type police presence and stuff. Unfortunately, this is the world we're in. But I'm going to get back to the notation about Obama. He's taking back the equipment from the police that he gave them.
Yeah, make it easier for the criminal
No.
again.
Now, some people are shaking your head. I get what you're saying. Because this is what we've been hearing from my sources is that the police in this nation are not with Obama on anything. They're not. Remember we had the big fear about what constitutional sheriffs and all that? The word has gotten out. And I'll tell you what's happened is you've had sheriffs now all across the country telling public to do what? Well, not only that, if you legally own them, carry them at all times. Which is what I say. We got Jason here. I mean, that guy's bulletproof. And I know some other people who have taken my advice. You know, they've got one long gun, they've got one handgun. That's my recommendation for everybody. That's what my people have been telling me for a year and a half. All I am is a messenger. These are people, these are major players. That's all I can tell you. I've been very blessed to know they have never lied to me. They've been 100% accurate on everything. So, I mean, that's some good news. But you see, Obama senses that and knows that. That's why he's taking the equipment back. Because when it comes down to disarming Americans, he's got a problem now, a bigger problem. And they're trying to subtly disarm the police departments because the police departments won't support and buy into Obama. They're going to support us in the Constitution. I think that's some pretty good news, actually. Thank you.
Are the police departments giving them back?
You know, I've heard two guys that said that they came and got the stuff. They just showed up and came, they wrote them a letter and said, we're going to come and get the stuff, and they came and got the stuff. And I think now, with all this stuff that's going on, I think there's going to be a little drag in their feet. You know, like these MRAPs and some of these tracked vehicles, when the feds show up to get them, they're probably out on maneuvers or something. Storming the beaches, Joanne.
Can you tell them about Dr. Jim Darrow's EMP report, and can you tell them about the site that was appeared in my Facebook about, I can't even say the word, but you wrote a caution on it. It's an outfit called IANI, and it's about mass killings in Syria.
Oh.
But the first one was the first one immediately was the one where I go, we are dealing with a madman.
Right. Okay, the grand plan, I left out the other part of the grand plan. December 2015 is a big month. It's always been preached to me it's a big month. It's already started out as a big month. It's going to continue to be a big month. When this happened the first time in July, you know, I said to my people, and I think I've discussed it, I'll just tell them. There's the good CIA and the bad CIA. There's the good FBI and the bad FBI. It's black and white. I'm just kind of cutting through it. And I was telling my people, okay, I'll get the word out, we'll put it on the radio, I'll do an article, blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden people started picking it up. They were bashing me. What a loon. Okay, great. Now what are they doing? They're ignoring me. But they're listening. You wouldn't believe who listens to my radio show now. They told me that the first phase of the operation would be the hunter-killers in the malls, and it really started in earnest by the December 2014 date. And some things happened along the road. And I'm not saying we know what their plan is to come in. There's a different dimension now because we have Putin and the Saudis and this other element here. So people are working on our behalf that don't work for the federal government. They know who the players are. And the last time this happened was a year ago. And if you go back and look at how many ISIS leaders were taken out starting in August through December of last year, you'll see why we had no mall attacks. Connect the dots. So we're at that situation now. There's people working overtime. It's a whole new dimension with this whole thing on the 2nd. But you know, the president is the one who's done this. And we as Americans have to do something about it. And again, where's our elected officials, right? They're cowering under their desks. Where's the Paul Ryans of the world? What are they doing? These guys know the information I told you about the funding, because Scott Bennett and I spent several hours in a couple of days calling just about every federal senator and member of the House of Representatives, or at least in the various committees. They have this information. They know the links directly that Hillary Clinton and Obama have to funding ISIS and the creation of ISIS. They know this. There's no excuses. There's no excuses. And when we get hit because of ISIS, this is the problem. Well, the other one was EMP attacks. Still, the prediction is out there. However, don't know who's going to pull them off. We don't know what's going to happen, but the prediction is there's going to be at least 3 EMP attacks in America in 2016. Perhaps electromagnetic pulse nuclear detonations over the nation. So this is the plan. That's what they're trying to do to us. Obama's completely in on it, of course. He knows this is what the destiny is. Now that I've really cheered you up, I don't know if that's going to happen. I think there may be some other circumstances that come out. That's the plan, though. Be prepared for it. Yes, sir.
Paul, do you speculate the unmarked Russian jet that flew over Los Angeles, San Diego, Las Vegas? Can you update us on that?
How many are aware of this? I mean, some Air Force, look at the Air Force guys all over. Okay, a Russian jet, similar to, I think, a Boeing 737, made a very, very strange and mysterious flight over Southern California and parts of Nevada. And it had no call sign. It wasn't communicating to anybody. And somebody emailed me and said, well, gee, Paul, this is all because you have this Friendly Skies program. And I said, oh, gee, back. How come they don't have a call sign? So you can see all these planes being tracked. I don't know if you've seen these. They're wonderful programs. Sky Tracker and all that stuff. And if you watch the pattern of the plane appears to take off from Santa Barbara Airport. Now, has anybody been to the Santa Barbara Airport, landed and taken off there? Used to be a Marine Corps Air Base during World War II. And you come in literally over the ocean, and you have about 100 feet between the runway and the ocean. So it's really kind of spectacular. All you see is water, and all of a sudden, boom. And I thought, that's kind of clever. A plane could come in from that direction, from, say, Mexico, really low under the radar and land there and take off later. That's just my speculation. But it takes off and travels down the coast, flies right over Point Mugu, flies over Los Angeles, and kind of loiters around Los Angeles, and then takes off and goes right up to Las Vegas, flies 2 times over Nellis Air Force Base, and then heads west, and goes west to Travis, and circles around Travis. Oh, and then flies north. Oh no, Sacramento, are you kidding me? No, listen, it didn't go to Sacramento. It flew to Beale and circled around, then went to Sacramento. And we lost track of it. Yeah, I wonder why they would go to those locations. I don't know.
Why wasn't there any jet scratch? If they were jets are present.
But why weren't there any dispatched or... Right. That's a question. Alan, that's all I have. But, yes, Alan.
And then, how about what you feel about Loretta Lynch's statement against anti-Muslim speech?
Well, she's, this is where, of course, she's backing off from that because it's completely lawless. And by the way, in this environment, I recommend do not follow any unlawful directives from the president. Hello? I'm sorry that he's lawless at this point. His unlawful behavior, unconstitutional behavior, in my mind, says that. Loretta Lynch is no different. She came out and said something blatantly unconstitutional. I guess it's okay to criticize Christians, right? That's not the way the Constitution works, and apparently she doesn't get it, obviously. Another question? Yes, sir.
In regards to Syrians, refugees, are these people being sponsored by?
They're being sponsored by President Barack Hussein Obama.
Well, where do they live? Where is the housing?
Okay, that's a very good question because this gets down into the real meat of the issue. They're being sponsored ultimately by the federal government. You're paying for them. Because what's happening is the federal government has worked deals with religious organizations, primarily the Jesuits, the Mormon Church, and other Christian organizations, to take them in and house them. They're getting paid billions of dollars to do so. That's why they have all these different housing things, and somebody else knows.
And also Governor Brown is the one that okayed it. He backs Barack Obama and everything he says. And he's the one that okayed for them to come here to.
In California.
And not so much California, here in
Pardon me?
County.
The question was, her explanation was it was Governor Jerry Brown who's allowed this to happen in California.
They voted on it.
Right. So he's all in on the deal. And this is the change we didn't want. It's a demographic shift. And by the way, these people are not being taught English. They're being taught in their native tongue. Yes, sir.
I heard this vicious rumor. You were back on KNYC.
That's an absolute vicious rumor. That's true. You can catch an hour me in a minute because I know it's Applebee's time. Yes?
The House of Representatives has the authority and power to impeach. They impeached President Clinton. Why don't, is there any action, have you heard of any action in the House to do this?
I've just heard a bunch of cowards speak. They're cowards. A lot of them have been bought off, compromised, threatened, and that's why we have what we have. We have to face the reality. I'm sorry. Pardon me? They're not using the power of the purse. The comments are they're power of the purse and stuff. They're not using the power of the purse. They're doing nothing. They're just letting it. See, a lot of them feel it's the voters' fault. It's the voters' fault. And of course, they don't understand there's been a grand plan to place this guy. Let's see. Sheriffs, media. Oh, Juan Williams. Okay, do you know where I'm going with this? His recent comments about guns. Anybody hear this? Juan Williams. Shows you. And we had the thing up here, Wiki, from what was his name?
Newsom.
De Leon, the most embarrassing. I have no idea about guns. This is Juan Williams and a liberal's perspective on an AR-15. He said this twice. First, I think it was on a Riley, and then later on the 5 or something. He said it twice. Okay, they're talking about these AR-15s being automatic weapons. Well, they don't come automatic. They have to be made to be automatic, which is what they did. And then there's these things called bullet buttons. Who knows what a bullet button is? Juan Williams said their guns were automatic guns, automatic weapons, because they had bullet buttons. He's saying this all over, I'm just hysterical. He's saying this all over Fox News. Those bullet buttons, that's what's made them automatic guns or bullet buttons. I'm going, I didn't hear it the first time I got up and went out in the room and said, did he say that?
You know, I
Shows
heard
you
that
how smart he is. Pardon?
They changed them. You can go and buy that little magnet, and you can change that, so you can push the button.
Haven't you learned your lesson to not give them?
Well, what you're saying don't make any difference anyway anymore.
Well, what do you mean?
Well, I mean, if there's 300,000 of them here, and Obama's on their side, and we got a Republican control of the House and the Senate,
Right.
can they do nothing?
No, that's the plan. We can do something.
What can we do?
What can we do is be informed.
What can you,
We can be informed, and once we're informed, we can take action. That's my point. What if I don't come here and tell you what happens, and it happens tomorrow? Or the next 2 days?
What you're saying tonight, I know this 4 years ago. I've been telling my friends what Obama is. His brother in Africa already said what Obama is.
Well, the word's getting out. No, congratulations, and I thank you for that.
I mean, my family knows it's common talk, what's happening. He's the dark angel, Obama.
Okay, let me back you up a little bit here. Thank you for saying that. It's nice to be amongst friends who've been saying this. When I'm talking about major mass media. I think everybody in here pretty much knows the feeling and what's been going on. And thank you very much. But they were now starting to see real, I think especially because of what happened in San Bernardino, real traction with the general public, and they're turning on Obama. And Comey was a big part of that. And what happened in this attack, realize the sophistication of this attack. The attack, and these people left clear trails to terrorism overseas. Their banking records for finance are so blatantly obvious. They wanted us to find it, right? And therein lies the clue. And that's the embarrassment for Obama. Do you see that?
You just got the address wrong.
Well, he should have, you know what he should have done is probably thought about what he might want to communicate with ISIS headquarters in Washington, D.C., 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. I don't want to talk about him. Please.
I got one question for you. I was just curious to see if you know the answer. They said when the shooting went down, the guy that bought the guns went down and voluntarily put himself in a mental institution so nobody will do anything to him. So he's scot-free, right?
Right.
Because if you're mentally sick, you can, it's okay. Is that true? Is that statement true from the press?
Robert, is that true? Does that happen?
Yes, it does happen, and
Law enforcement
he
here, so.
becomes a prohibited person under 8300 welfare institution, but that does not aggravate his prior sentence.
Okay, so let's get this. This is law enforcement here. Robert's got the answer for you, but I want to. I'll explain what he did in a second too.
What happens is they go in and check themselves in. You cannot do it under 5150 or 5250, which is a danger to yourself or others. But you go in saying you hear voices, you do what the voices say, and you cannot resist the voices. That makes you incompetent to try it, because you then cannot understand the nature of the proceedings or the function of each of the players, and therefore there's no point in talking to you because you don't know if you're talking to you or talking to the voice.
Okay, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. What major groups in California use this technique?
Oh, shoot, we've had gangs use it for years.
You hear that? I asked the question, what are some of the favorite groups in California who use this legal dodge? And it's gangs. And specifically, if you're related to cartels. If you're related to cartels, that means the Russians are here.
So to answer my question, is that true? The guy checked himself?
Yes, he did.
So he's off the hook.
All right. He did, okay. Enriquez is his last name, I think. Okay, this is the guy that was a friend of the male guy, Farouk. And he sold him the guns. Enrique did. He lives in Riverside, California. So they figured out where the guns came from. And they figured out where the guns came from, and it was him. So they went to his house, and he just cooperated with them. And they found all kinds of evidence and everything else. So the very next day, he does the cartel standard gang thing and checks himself into a mental institution. That's what Bob was explaining there. They can do that, and they're off the hook. That's a technique gangsters in California have been using for years. I'd have students that I would bust with large quantities of marijuana and so on, and they would go down and turn themselves in. And the reason is their parents are part of cartels. Yes, sir. I don't know. But I gotta tell you, I do know the San Bernardino County Sheriff. They're hunting him down like the dog that he is. And someplace, you know, that there's a big desert out there. Yes, ma'am.
What about the rumor that CNN had gone in their apartment
It's true.
and ransacked the place?
No.
Destroyed evidence?
No. The FBI was done.
Oh.
They served their warrant. They got everything on the warrant they needed, and they walked out and left it. It was the apartment owner who did what he did. But CNN was there, MSNBC, so on. How many of you would be interested in doing a night of active shooter's drill with no weapons? Just as a drill to kind of rehearse if we set one up. How many? Okay. So, Bill, I just threw that one out there. I used to train active shooters scenarios in school training drills. I was one of the only administrators in the state to start this in 2005. And boy, did my superintendents hate me for it. But I was really happy. One other thing I want to announce, because we're leaving now, because they're giving me the high sign over there because everybody wants to go to Applebee's. And you're all invited.
I'm going to cut Larry's throat here soon.
Oh, let me talk a little bit longer. By the way, listen, on the way out tonight, Larry got a haircut. Okay, if you wanted a very interesting thing, I interviewed Peter Levenda again, and Peter and I have become quite close. He first appeared on my radio show. I had to go back and check this out, but he first appeared when I was doing the Inside Education show in May of 2011. His book was coming out called The Rat Line, and it talks about how all the Nazis escaped Germany after the war and where they went, and how Adolf Hitler escaped. And if you're watching, like tomorrow night, the History Channel, they're doing this series on hunting Hitler. Much of it is based upon his research. And, of course, he's got another book called The Hitler Legacy. And this picks up, I interviewed him last Tuesday, or Wednesday. Maybe it was Tuesday, who knows. And I did a whole hour special. It's now on YouTube, and it's out. And if you want to understand what's going on in present day, listen to this. Because Hitler did live. And all the gold that was in Germany got out. And that gold is being used right now. Now the book, Hitler Legacy, spells this out. I have about 2 more hours of unedited stuff I probably will never publish. But we're going to interview Peter next week for the second in the series. And we're going to be talking about the legacy of Hitler from 1956 on, and his influences and the Nazi influence on the modern political world. How many of you felt this is sort of a little bit Nazi-esque? How about seriously? All kind of reminiscent of the Nazis? Well, we have the answers for you. No, he's not. He's passed away. 1970. Okay, so I've got all the things. Any more questions before we go to Applebee's? Yes, sir.
Just one quick one. We're quickly hearing you on the radio. Why aren't you on 1410 anymore?
I don't know. That's disappointing. I'm really disappointed not on 1410 anymore. No, I'm not. I must not be. Nobody's listening. No. Okay, as of a week ago Monday, we're back on. Yeah, we're back on. And the show's airing right now from 7 to 10. Also, we're going to be appearing on more radio stations in January, which is really across the nation. And if you go to our website, we're going to have an app up there. And we have go to Red State Talk Radio. Red State Talk Radio from 6 to 9 a.m. California time is the East Coast broadcast of my show. And the website, just go to and click on it, and it's a very easy application. You can listen to it.
Ideology still goes on today.
Put this out.
It absolutely does. And I made the comment in the interview, boy, you can just see that ideology bursting out all over.
Yep, and Sutter.
No,
Sutter and you, if you want
oh,
it.
that's the interview. That's the wiki man. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, and just to let everybody know, on the way out, there's free Ghirardelli chocolate caramel, 3 or 4 different items, and some white grapes, sparkling, free juice cocktails. So please, everybody, pick one up. It's free till it's gone. Then it's gone.
Well, the law is already passed.
That is not it.
I like coming over and this out.